You get to decide what forgiveness means to you, and nobody should be telling you what you get to define as forgiveness and if you've done it or not. Hello, boss. Welcome to another episode of Healing with YB. Today, we are going to be talking about forgiveness, and this is going to be a Forgiveness 2.0 because I have made an episode about forgiveness in the past before when I found forgiveness and what it meant to me, but it's been quite a while since then, and I've learned and I've progressed about my understanding of what forgiveness looks like now. So I want to do an updated version of what forgiveness means to me today and how we could practice and learn from this and whatnot, okay? When I found forgiveness, and this is going to be forgiveness mainly towards my perpetrator brother who sexually assaulted me when I was a child. That was something that really affected my life, and so I held a lot of anger and hatred and resentment and negative energy because of what he did to me, and that was what it was back then. And then I found forgiveness, and that's what in a way helped me let go of that hatred within myself. So that's going to be what I'm going to be talking about, and it's going to be around the area of my SA journey stuff. But you can use forgiveness in your everyday daily relationships as well. Initially, I found forgiveness back in 2021. It was November 21st, and this is going to be coming out the week of that November 21st. So it's going to be 4 years since I have found forgiveness. And in those 4 years, I have learned a lot about what forgiveness means, what it looks like, and what I believe forgiveness is. And so I want to share those with you, but I'm going to take you back all the way to 2021 when I initially found forgiveness. Right before I found forgiveness, I was a very angry person. I held a lot of that hatred and resentment towards my perpetrator. I honestly wished death upon him, that type of anger. I didn't see him as a human, someone worth living, someone that deserved any kind of good things in life, because that's how much I hated him. And when I found forgiveness, I was actually sitting in the living room in my previous place, and I was just kind of in the zone of trying to better myself. And so I had picked up self-help books, and one of the self-help books is Think Like a Monk. It's from 𝙤𝙪. I've talked about him in many of my posts and episodes or whatnot, but it's because he was a person, his book was the book that really changed my life, and my rebirth started happening because of it. So on November 21st, 2021, and the reason why I had the exact date of me finding forgiveness was because I did one of those journal prompts from there on that day, and that date specifically is the day where I was going through this process of journaling what I forgive of my perpetrator and whatnot. So that's how I had the date. And so that's exactly what I did. On that day, I sat in my apartment living room and I was reading on what forgiveness meant. And then it was asking me to do some exercises with forgiveness. At that time, I learned about this type of forgiveness called transformational forgiveness. That type of forgiveness is not the type where somebody apologizes to you and then you say, I accept your apology, or you forgive them for whatever they did to you, right? I feel like that's a very common thing. It's more of that one, they kind of call it like a conditional forgiveness, where they apologize and then you accept or not or whatever. This one is transformational forgiveness that I found, that I realized at that time that there was such thing that existed. People don't really approach forgiveness in this kind of way, and they kind of just tell you to forgive that person, but they don't really label it. And so I think that that was kind of something that I didn't really have an education about, and so that's why I didn't want to do it as well, because I only knew of the conditional type of forgiveness. And if my perpetrator did not apologize to me, why would I forgive him, and why would I let all of that go when he doesn't even feel sorry for what he did? So that was my mindset at that time. But with this new information about transformational forgiveness, I was like, okay, yeah, I think I can do that. And initially, when I picked up this book, I already put down that I was going to do most of the things that this book asks me to do so that I could be wiser, more healed, or whatnot, because I really was struggling and I wanted to better myself. So when this came about forgiveness, I was like, okay, it wants me to work on transformational forgiveness. What is the number one thing that I feel in my life at this moment that I don't want to forgive? Of course, it was what my perpetrator did to me, and forgiving my perpetrator for that and who he is as a person. I didn't want to forgive him for the assaults and the trauma that he had caused me. So that was what I decided to choose for my exercise at that time. When I was sitting there, I talk about this, and it sounds silly to look at it and just see it now, but I think it was actually very beautiful at like watching myself, as if I am watching myself go through this process, because I was literally sitting in the living room writing in that journal, bawling my eyes out, you guys. I was bawling my eyes out about, I forgive him for having done XYZ to me. I forgive him for mentally abusing me. I forgive him for trying to cover it up. And I just kept going about everything that I forgive him for, even though he never apologized. And then I also had, there was also an exercise in there where I had to kind of forgive myself. And what do I forgive myself in this situation? And so I also went in there and started writing about like how I forgive myself for not going to an adult about it. I felt very guilty that when I started to sense that it wasn't right, I didn't go to an adult about it, and I didn't tell them what was happening. I said to myself too that I forgive myself for feeling good about it, because, you know, when you're a child and you aren't really educated, you can't really control what your body feels. And so for me, I couldn't control what my body felt, and I couldn't control it feeling good. And I felt disgusted that my body felt this way during that period, and I felt ashamed of myself, and I felt guilty for feeling that way. And so I had to go through the process of forgiving myself for that as well, and giving myself grace that I had no control over that. So basically, I went through all of the things about why I should forgive my perpetrator and what I forgive him for. And then I went over what I should forgive myself for and what I do forgive myself for. If I'm being honest, there was some resistance there. Like, I didn't want to do it. I was fighting myself, but at the same time, I'm like, I need to do this. I need to do this and just see where I go. And I just want to let go of this anger inside of me and be a better version of myself. So after I found forgiveness, then I went on this really big high of working on myself. It was the start of my rebirth, okay, to being a better version of myself. And I continued to go on this high of like positivity and not having negative energy or surrounding myself around negative people with the negative energy. I started to, in a way, try to implement positivity and forgiveness in my life and in the people around me a little bit too much. And so that's where I had to learn, and I had to step back, and I had to refigure out what forgiveness meant and rebalance that, because I went a little bit too far into the good side. While I was learning through all of this, I continued to learn about what forgiveness meant as well. There was a period in my journey where I had confronted my perpetrator about what he had done to me. And after he showed me that he was remorseful, but at the same time, there were still signs in him where there were like excuses, lies, and manipulation as well in there, where I was like, I can't believe that he is this version of himself still. And I was confused because I also felt the remorse. I also felt his like core self, an IFS term. I also felt that. So I was really confused on what this meant and what forgiveness means. The type of forgiveness that I had found back in 2021, the transformational forgiveness, and this type of forgiveness that I'm questioning myself about now, about do I forgive him now that he has in a way acknowledged what he did was wrong, but give me a whole bunch of excuses and say this and that about it? Like, do I forgive him for that? And I realized that I didn't feel like forgiving him for that, because I didn't feel like he was genuine, that he took accountability wholeheartedly 100% for everything that he did on his end. I didn't feel like he was a great person to be around still and to allow that relationship to happen either. I started thinking about, like, does this mean that I hate him or I resent him? And what type of way do I feel about him? I realized that it's not that I hate him. I believe that I still have found transformational forgiveness for myself and for the situation, but I don't like him as a person. He's not somebody who I would build a relationship with being who he is now either. Because I think, to me, I really value honesty, I value integrity, and that is something that he was missing and he's missing. I had to make sure that I didn't go back to that version of myself full of hatred and resentment. So then I realized that forgiveness can mean different things for different people, for different situations. So I have a summary here, and I took a note on it because I want to be very, very thorough on what I say, what I believe forgiveness looks like for me today. So, number one, I believe that everyone finds forgiveness on their own time. When their body and mind is done fighting, when they want to let go of that hatred or resentment, only then will they finally start the process of forgiveness. People have the right to be angry about their boundaries being crossed. When a person's boundaries have been crossed so bad where there's trauma now or PTSD for this person, they have every right to be even more angry. It is understandable that these people hold on to that anger for a longer period of time as well. Based off of my own personal experiences, this is my opinion because of it. I don't believe that we should force or suggest someone to forgive their perpetrator or the person who hurt them. In the past, when I was full of hatred, this actually caused more resistance with me. When people told me to find forgiveness, I actually fought back more, like, I'm not going to find forgiveness. That's what I mean. I believe the right approach, though, to bring in the idea of forgiveness is to share how forgiveness has changed you. If it hasn't even changed you, I don't believe that you have the right to be going around telling people what to do on this part either. But when we share how our experiences with forgiveness is like, it allows us to bring in the idea of forgiveness in a more approachable way while validating what this person is going through. This means a lot to me, especially during that period where I was just so full of hatred and resentment and I was in so much pain. Nothing annoyed me more than people telling me that I should do XYZ. My sister, she brought up that maybe I should forgive him. And that really backfired because it caused more anger and fire in me that why would she ask me to do something like that? And so that's why I now feel that this is the approach to go. And I've also been on the end of having found forgiveness and trying to push people to find it, because I found it and it was great for me, so maybe you should do it. But I learned that the right approach about this is not to suggest it because I found it and it worked for me, but to share how it worked for me. And if they want to find forgiveness, if they're ready for that, if they think that that's what's best for them, then they can decide if it is. Again, they have every right to validate what they are going through and the pain that they are experiencing. And I think as a very supportive person, you should also validate that as well. Number 2, forgiveness isn't a one-time done deal. This goes back to what I shared about how I later on realized that I had to forgive my perpetrator for this version of him, or this actual person of him, this him as a whole. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. That I had to forgive him as a whole now, as who he is now today. And I realized that there was a difference between the two, and what I did do and what I don't want to do, or why. So I already shared that with you guys. And I believe that, with forgiveness, it doesn't mean that you won't ever have that come back into your life to see if you want to forgive this person. It's just like having a relationship with your partner. They do something wrong and then you forgive them for that, but then they do something wrong again. And you're not just going to forgive them for that second thing that they did wrong because you did the first time. No, there has to be accountability or some kind of remorse or something being done on that second one. It's not a one-time done deal for a person as a whole. For me, it was a one-time done deal for the hatred and resentment that I felt towards him, because right now too, I don't resent him for the things that he did to me. I don't hate him. I don't feel those things anymore. So the forgiveness was a one-time done deal for that. Even today, like him doing things that are just odd and like I don't like, but I'm just so healed where I can comprehend and I can see his IFS and his shame and whatnot working. It's almost as if like I can see his characters and diagnose why he does the things that he does. And so it doesn't really bother me, or I don't take it personal, because it's a him issue, and whatever he does, karma's gonna come back. So through everything I just shared, it brings us to number 3, where I also learned through all of that we get to define what forgiveness means to us in different areas of people. It is not a one size fits all. As long as you no longer hold on to hatred or resentment or allow what happened to you control your emotions, I believe that you have found the deepest power of forgiveness. Number 4, people's fight against forgiveness, like me in the beginning, right, is that when we consider forgiveness, it's almost like we are allowing what our perpetrator did to us go. As if it wasn't wrong or it'll all be forgotten, almost as if we condone that type of behavior when we forgive them. However, transformational forgiveness doesn't mean that at all. It means that we allow our body to rest and stop being in survival mode. That we allow everything within us to stop suffering. It's kind of like a double-bladed sword. The more that you hold on to hatred or resentment and you want to instill pain on your perpetrator, the more you are also instilling pain within yourself. That's how I like to refer to it when you hold on to hatred and resentment, and when you are just so full of violence that you were once like me, or you are like me, where I once was that person who I wish my perpetrator was dead. Yeah. Now, just because I say that, it doesn't mean that I don't understand where you come from, because I used to be there. I understand why you feel the way you do. And another thing on that is, I believe that you have to go through this anger phase in order to continue to heal. Like if you just avoid this anger phase as well, it also has its own bad effects on you, okay? Number 5, forgiveness doesn't mean that we have to mend the relationship in order for forgiveness to be true. I just want to highlight this one because this one is very, very important. Forgiveness doesn't mean that we have to mend the relationship in order for forgiveness to be true. We can forgive someone for what they've done and still choose to not be buddy-buddy with them because who they still are isn't for us, okay? You don't have to mend your relationship with the person who hurt you after you've found forgiveness. And finding forgiveness doesn't mean that you are now allowing that relationship to happen. You can still have boundaries. You can still forgive someone and not want to be friends with them or in a relationship with them anymore. It does not mean that you have not found forgiveness. Just like my relationship with my perpetrator, I don't want to mend my relationship with him, even though I have found transformational forgiveness, even though I have figured out that I don't want to forgive him for who he is as a person today, and I just don't find it like, what is there to forgive when that's who he is, you know? So I've acknowledged that that is who he is, and he's just not for me. And so that doesn't mean that I have not found forgiveness. I have found forgiveness. And again, we get to define what forgiveness means to us, right? So I feel and I know that I have found forgiveness and I forgive him for what he did, but I don't like him as a person. So I'm not going to mend my relationship with him, because why would you surround yourself around somebody who you don't like because of who they are, right? It's not healthy for you. It's not going to benefit you. It's not going to be a balanced relationship. Just because they are your blood does not mean that you have to have a relationship with them. Just because you have found forgiveness doesn't mean that you have to have a relationship with them. And so I think a lot of people, when they look at me or they look at my situation, they say, well, you say that you found forgiveness, but you still resent your brother and you still don't want to have a relationship with him. You still don't want to be in the same area, the same room, the same house as him. So I don't think you found forgiveness. Yes, I have found forgiveness, but I don't like him as a person, right? If you had to have someone who you don't like as a person because they bring you negative energy, they are toxic, they don't really say the best, nicest things, they appear very fake, loud, and it's just not for you, why would you want to surround yourself in that environment with this person? I have learned to balance and to set boundaries when it comes to this part of my situation. But that is what I mean, boss. You get to decide what forgiveness means to you, and nobody should be telling you what you get to define as forgiveness and if you've done it or not. So that's everything that I have to share about what I've learned so far in the last 4 years since initially finding forgiveness. It has been a very, very long journey of understanding what forgiveness looks like, what it means for me, what I see other people see it means for them, and just practicing forgiveness as well. I know that I will continue to learn and understand what forgiveness means to me. And so when I do, I will continue to share that with you guys. But that is everything that I've learned about forgiveness. I hope that it was helpful for you. I hope that it brings in new perspectives of what forgiveness may mean to you as well. I hope that you felt validated in your feelings and acknowledged about why forgiveness and all this isn't for you. Because I understand, boss. I understand where you are coming from, and I've been there, so I get it. All right, boss. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. And as always, stay being the bad boss that you are. Bye.